The bell has rung. So get seated and join Elementary Schooled for today's interview.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Elementary Schooled, and I'm thrilled to have our guest today. This is Randy Watt, who is a liaison with the Utah School Security Task Force, and recently you just met at the Capitol and had an important meeting. I saw that in the news, and it lined up perfectly as at the same time, as you were meeting and discussing and presenting, I was actively engaged in gathering surveys to amp up for Season 2, and I asked parents in Utah. All of my social media that I went to is all pretty much Utah-based, but others chimed in as well. But I asked the 3 things that parents want. I did the same thing a year ago, and the results were very similar. However, the number 1 that just outdid the other 2 was safety and security at school. People just want to feel at ease. I'm sending my precious child to school. I want to feel at ease. Number 2 was understanding and kindness, empathy in my child's teacher. And 3 was academics. And I told my husband, I said, isn't that interesting that academics was number 3? But it makes sense because we can't get to the academics unless we have safety at school and we have some empathy and understanding. So I was so grateful that you accepted my invitation. Welcome, Randy Watt, and thank you for being our guest today.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. I'm going to read a quick bio about you. You've done a lot in your life. You are a native of Ogden, Utah. You have a bachelor's degree in police science from Weber State University, a master's degree in business administration from the University of Phoenix, and a master's degree in strategic studies from the United States Army War College. You have served in the Ogden Police Department for 36 years, and that includes your time as police chief for 4 of those years. You also have served in active duty with the military for 33 years, and I'm glad that you added the 10 months. 33 years and 10 months is important.
To the day.
To the day. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for your service. You have a great way about you that draws people in, and I'm guessing that's part of why you've been so successful in all the many things that you've done, and now are helping with the Utah School Security Task Force to make sure that students in Utah and other places, I hope this is a model for other states, or maybe we've modeled them, I don't know, but will you also mention what you are the CEO of a security system as of 2008. Is that how you are affiliated with safety, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So what I did is I took those 2 careers and I combined them together and built a consulting company around those things. And it's very broad based. I have the experience and the people I utilize, we're able to cross a number of things, everything from leadership for Fortune 500 companies, strategic leadership, strategic planning. We have clients that are Fortune 500 companies down to startups. Safety and security stuff for corporations to enhance their security, whether it's for their people traveling overseas and so on. And then specific training for everything from the average individual to again, corporations, military and law enforcement in being tactically sound and safe. I like to say that given those 2 careers and my experiences, multiple trips to the war and so on, that I have a PhD in violence. I have a couple of master's degrees, but I truly have a very solid understanding of violence. And when it comes to school safety, the let's call it the watershed moment, of course, was Columbine in 1999. But and here we are, 24 years later, and still arguing about whether we should be improving safety and security in our schools. And so we started, when I say we, this collective group of forward thinkers in the law enforcement tactical world, we began looking at security. Keep in mind that we look at security and safety as two different subjects. Safety is a general subject. I mean, that's the playground equipment. That's the general circumstances involved in. We view security as the mechanism by which we attempt to ensure that violence and violent activities don't occur on our campuses. So we kind of break those into those two areas, although in reality the two sort of are meshed. We're
together.
just looking at, we are looking at one aspect of safety. We're looking at violence in schools. So we've been pushing this and talking this and trying to get some forward movement on this for over 20 years. I have done work with school districts outside this state. I've had very little luck until the last couple of years with school districts inside the state of Utah. It just seemed to be too big of a paradigm shift for the education environment in Utah. That is changing, and it's changing because, quite frankly, the Utah State Legislature just finally has run out of patience with the school board and the school districts, and they wanted and they demanded through House Bill 61 and a couple of other related bills, they demanded performance in improving security. We have not had a mass shooter event at a school in Utah, and they want to keep it that way. And after numerous years of attempting to convince, gently nodding and prodding the school board, state education and school districts to move in that direction, they decided that to legislate it. And Representative Wilcox, Senator Ipson are the two primary people, with Representative Gwynn, who is also, as you're aware, the chief of police in Roy. They finally said, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. And so I was involved in helping to shape that bill and in providing information for that bill. And that's how I ended up on the task force. You will see the bills now that go forward that are being drafted right now by Representative Wilcox's staff. You're going to see those bills go forward, and these grants for school security are going to become line items in the state budget.
Back to school is happening right now in Utah and all over the country, and it's exciting and full of good stuff. But it's that old saying, isn't it, that prepare for the worst and expect the best. So we want everyone to have a great year. I know this can get people going with some anxiety and fear, but our goal today is to shed some light on the updates that are happening. So you have already given us some great information about what is happening and how serious that this is being taken by our school districts and coming from the state of Utah, that we're very serious about this. Will you share some statistics with us so parents and educators know that school still remains to be one of the safest places to be?
Oh, it is. There's absolutely no doubt. When you look at, all right, let's take Utah, for instance. There are 38,000 public classrooms in the state of Utah. That is large. The number of incidents is extremely small in those schools. If you go to the state school safety report, you'll see that there have not been any large-scale active violence. There's not been an active shooter. So we're at zero there. We do get, depending on the location of the region, we do get raising or lowering levels of physical assaults, those types of things that happen, but have always occurred to some degree in our schools. Our schools have never been free of the human social interactions that sometimes lead to confrontations and lead to things. But we have a very good record in the state of Utah. We're lower by far. We're among the lowest in the nation in terms of those things occurring on school campuses. So what I want people to realize, because we may not realize it, is the trend line in school shootings. So that in 2020-2021 school year, we had 93 school shootings across the country. which is a far more larger number than most people realize. This continuing upward trend that hasn't stopped yet. So where we had 93 shootings in the 2020-2021 school year. So statistically,
Do we
moving,
know that data from 22-23? Do we know that data yet?
Not yet. That data.
We don't know if that number is higher.
No, they haven't produced a report yet. So that 2022-23 school year, or actually 21-22 school year, will be produced this following spring as they compile all that data. So you see that trend. It's a pretty marked trend, and it's a pretty steep angle on that trend. And so that's part of what and why the legislature, understanding this data, and there are other studies out there that show the same results, is why we're moving to improve security in the schools.
Absolutely. That is shocking to see that rise even from 2021. That's shocking to see that, even though one of the stats I read does help us keep kind of some balance in our thinking, that there are roughly 55 million students K through 12 in the United States currently. And since 1999, which was Columbine, there's been more than 356,000 students that have experienced some type of gun violence at school. That number is shocking, but in terms of how many students we have, it's relatively small. And the only reason I'm saying that is so that because in the last couple of years, we as teachers have seen students actually not wanting to come to school because of the fear over an active shooter. So I think it's important to say both. And again, it goes back to having, being prepared and all the things we talked about in our pre-interview, to have a plan, to be prepared. So will you walk us through, because I know when you recently met with the Utah School Security Task Force on Capitol Hill, and that you discussed this and that it was in the news, you give a lot of good news of what the developments and updates are in 3 specific categories that help our schools here in Utah, and hopefully, like we said, other states.
The model that my company has developed and that we utilize, that security consists of 3 categories, and we consider them overlapping circles. Right? We have those 3 circles overlapping: physical measures, right, technology, and then personnel activities. So when you overlap all 3 circles, where you have a piece of all 3, you have high security, because you have technology working in conjunction and complementary to physical measures, working in conjunction with and complementary to the personnel activities that happen on site. Where you have overlapping circles but only have 2 of them, then you have medium security, where you have technology working with physical measures, or technology working with personnel activities, or personnel activities working with physical measures. You have a medium level of security. Where you only have 1 of those things in place, and you have low security. All right. So a good example: a door, right? A secured door. It is very rare for me or my team to go do a security survey analysis, a site security analysis for a corporation, for a school, for any fixed facility, and not find an open door or window, right? So the next step is, we have a door that's supposed to be secure, that is secure, but it is overwatched by a camera, right? Now, the camera enhances a couple of things. That camera acts as a deterrent. People know that the camera is watching, and most people know that the camera is actually recording. And a lot of cameras are recording. So now we have greater security because we have a secure door, we have a camera overwatching. But, right, is somebody watching the camera? If a person is watching the camera, the person sees the door is unsecured. If there's not a person watching the camera, if that is not on a monitor screen that somebody's observing, then the door may be unsecured, the camera records it, but we are not getting timely information that says go resecure that door. They complement in just one very narrow space. Now, not every part of every facility needs to have high security.
All three.
Right. But
Or-
there are certain components that I think should have, right? Or as we mix and match those capabilities, I may not have or need or want camera in the classroom, but I do want a camera monitoring the hall, because things that happen in the classroom will spill out into the hall, right? I do want the camera in the hall monitoring the access points to those rooms. And I do want somebody who can act as the early warning piece of the system, that when a student takes the backpack, which he has concealed a firearm in, and exit that classroom and pulls the firearm out, I do want someone to see that piece. Or I want a piece of technology, firearm detection technology in particular, that now sounds an alarm and says, there's a person in the hallway with this firearm. What we have now in the vast majority of our schools is we have occasionally locked doors, occasionally monitored cameras, and occasionally people paying attention, but those things are not married together into what we call a security posture that is ongoing.
So it's going to take years, because it's going to
Yes.
take a process. Like you said, it's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy will go into this. Do you see it getting to that level where all three of those things are in place in, can you even predict how many years that would take for us to get to that point? Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
Because the largest single impediment to this is changing the mindset of the education community. This is a hard thing for the education community. It's
a
very
lot more
complex.
complex with high school and junior high, and the numbers of
Absolutely.
students that come, faculty and students every day,
Right.
than it is on an elementary level. And so when it comes to elementary, I can say at my own school, I really appreciate that every year there seems to be a new update. And that means a fence that was put in that wasn't there before, or there is a new camera in a hall that maybe we didn't have before. And I think the mindset is changing. I think educators, we recognize, we watch the news, we see the realities. We don't want to live in a place of fear. However, it's just realistic to know that we have to do better. We have to have some of these parameters in place so that our kids are safe.
And for me, a big player in this are the parents, because what the kids will take to school, or will internalize whatever the parents are transmitting. If that parent is feeling a great deal of fear, that child is going to come to school with a great deal of fear. If the parents are seeing the improvements, or the parents are hearing the conversation saying, look, they're doing better at this, or the parent is saying, look, you're just fine at that school, they are doing reasonable things to protect you. If we look at the process involves 4 key concepts: prevention, detection, deterrence. Defense is the last. So if we work harder at prevention, that is, prevention is creating an environment that's more difficult to enter, to access vulnerable lives. So you have prevention, then you have deterrence, which is the measures you put in place, then you have detection. What are the processes by which we create an environment where students feel free to talk about it? 64% of the school shooters, within the week prior to the event, directly told someone in their circle what they were going to do.
64%.
64%. So how do we enable people to feel comfortable reporting it? What are the systems? And we tell people, you should report it to law enforcement, but do not rely on law enforcement to report it to the school. You should report it to law enforcement. You should report it to the school yourself. Okay. You should report it to your pastor. If your child is currently in some type of therapy, you should report it to the therapist.
And there's a Utah School Safety app. I'll
Yes.
attach that at the end where it can be reported anonymously, because some
Yes.
older students might not report it because they're worried that they'll be targeted.
I think in 2021, I think there were 53 planned acts of violence that were thwarted by law enforcement as a result of notification through the SAFEUT app. Anyway, that's
a
good
big deal.
data.
Yes.
That's big deal. So creating it, and then the last is defense, and that's the measures and things we talk about, because the big thing that people, parents, teachers, students need to understand is what we call the gap time. It might be, if you're lucky, you're getting a 3.5 to 7 minute response, which is extremely fast in today's environment. Or worst case scenario, you're getting 7, 9, 11, 14 minutes in terms of response. And you think of rural Utah schools and where a deputy or a highway patrol trooper may be in terms of proximity to that, and we've got issues, which is one of the reasons why House Bill 61 includes a provision for particularly small and rural schools to access grant funding to pay for a school resource officer.
So all districts have access to that grant money as of now because of.
They do, but if you look at House Bill 61, there's a measured process where the emphasis is on the smaller schools in the rural areas.
Will you mention the specific name of your company? Because with these funds, your company is a good one to contact to consult with and get this training in place.
It's SRWinc.us. It's SRW, Strategic and Tactical Special Operations Training and Services Incorporated. Or you can email me, Randy, at srwinc.us, and I'm happy to respond or talk about this. It is protecting our most vulnerable, and that's our children, and thereby protecting our future.
That's right. I want to thank you for not retiring. And you said you don't believe in retirement.
I don't believe in
it. Good people like you are so needed, and your experiences and your expertise, knowledge, everything that you have provided and helped our state with to protect students is so valuable. And I just want to thank you as an educator, as a mom. Just thank you, because it is better to talk about these things. We learned that with suicide prevention, that for years it wasn't really talked about, and studies showed we need to talk about it so we can prevent it. I do like to end with a Christian thought. We talked about this a little bit before we started interviewing, and I know that you very much feel this same way, but this week I came across one of my very favorite scriptures of all time in the Bible. It's in Romans. In all these things, we are more than conquerors. And the end of that scripture says, through him who loves us. And so I just want to invite and encourage families, and especially parents. Something that really helped me through all the years of raising kids, my youngest just started high school, is having that morning prayer before everyone separates for their day, work, school, but that morning prayer that helps us to just feel positive and good about our day. We do our part and God makes up the rest. Yes, bad things happen, but we are strengthened. We are capable of making a new plan and learning from experiences that have happened in our country.
I appreciate that. May God bless you and your efforts as we continue forward, protect the kids.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, take care.
Are you going to be one of those great people that never retires?
Oh, I don't. Retirement's a silly word. It's an absolutely silly word. Just because I retired organizationally from a couple of different organizations doesn't mean I retire from life and purpose.
That's right. There's always good work to do.
There's plenty to do. And I think we owe it to our Creator to continue to use the skills, talents, abilities, and experiences He provided us to help others.
I agree with you. And sometimes finding that purpose might lead us to different avenues of different purposes, because I noticed in your, as I was researching about you, you've done a lot of different things, but
Very
always,
much so. Yeah.
always fighting the good fight. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, I have, when you speak of purpose, I have what I call, it's trademarked and copyrighted, and I give talks around it. The 5 P's for success in life, love, or labor. And the first P is, and they're of course in order. The first P is purpose, is defining your purpose, and purpose changes at various points in your life, and purpose overlaps. My purpose in my marriage, and my purpose in my work, and my purpose in developing my life overlap with each other, and they require the application of specific values throughout. The second P is passion. And if you read Ryan Holiday's book, Ego, on ego, Ryan talks about passion being destructive without purpose. And it's true that passion without being directed towards the accomplishment of a purposeful objective is certainly destructive. And we can see that across society with various movements and various activities, and a great deal with a lot of our young people today have a great deal of passion to go out and expound on their passion, but it's not pointed or directed at something, some purposeful cause, and their lives get in turmoil and get tied up. And then after you define your purpose and you apply passion, you develop a plan. You cannot get anywhere without a plan. I'm a big believer in planning, whether it's planning to have success in my marriage, or planning to have success in my personal development, or planning to have success in my business career. You have to have a plan, and the plan is what helps you focus and direct, almost laser-like, your passion and your purpose towards that accomplishment. And so you have your purpose, you have your passion, you have your plan, and then you have to have persistence. You have to work the plan. Too many people are easily nudged off their plan. They see the next shiny object and they fail to continue in the direction they're going, which leads to the 5th P, which is patience. Anything that is going to be accomplished, particularly in any form of greatness, requires time. And so we're persistent in working our plan, but we're patient in achieving the results. And it works. Purpose, passion, plan, persistence, and patience are the 5 pieces to success. And I fully believe and am a strong example of that.
Thank you for teaching us. I'm going to include that at the end of our podcast session
Sure.
about safety today, because I agree with you. I learned a lot of those same things from that Viktor Frankl book about where to
Yeah.
put your purpose, and everyone's road has some type of pain in it. And I guess that really connected with me. We have too many people suffering in pain, and they don't know that their pain can turn into purpose, because you can turn it into helping others with what
That's right.
you've experienced.
That's right.
So I wonder if you could add another letter P, because I did a little research, and I heard your leadership presentation that's on YouTube. I think it was from 2017, but this statement really struck me. And you said, "I am a firm believer in a process." And if we view what we're going through as a process, then it's just more positive, because a process takes time. It takes all those things you mentioned, planning and persistence and persevering.
I actually do have a 6th that I apply in certain audiences. Process, to me, when we lay out what a plan looks like, which is what I do in the seminars and things, it includes process, and we speak on process. But the 6th one that I apply in certain audiences is prayer.
Yes.
Because if you look at the lives of successful people, people that we would deem to be successful, they all had some form of deep abiding faith, a recognition of a greater power to whom they owed some allegiance, and owed some loyalty, and owed some feasance, and so that mechanism for that is prayer. In some faiths, it's meditation, which is a form of prayer, in my
Sure.
opinion.
Sure.
But not all audiences get number 6.
Yeah, but need number 6. They
They
all
do.
need it, but
They
they
all
can't
need
all
it.
hear it.
Yeah, they all need it.
Yeah.
But I often open my discussions. I didn't in the one you're talking about or some of the others, but in the last 5-6 years, I open my discussion as I just give a little history. I talk about the fact that, first and foremost with me is I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And so that informs everything. That informs all these things, all these P's, everything that we're talking about, because that's a critical component for me, because that faith and that allegiance and that returning to my God, those things, those gifts that He's provided me, the only true mechanism for returning that is to assist others.
That's where the true power comes from.
It
So
is.
that's probably why your messages and your work, I think when we're working with God and involving Him in these processes, it's just a lot more powerful.
It is.
See a lot more movement. And so that was really beautifully said. Thank you.
Thanks for being part of today's class. To submit a question or topic for further episodes, please email elementary.schooled@outlook.com. School is out for today, but please remember, when we strengthen a child, we strengthen society.